3 games?
Well, first of all, they rebounded the ball effectively. Obviously, they've been dominant in the paint. There's nobody that can deny that. And their bench production for the Greek Freak to go to the bench yesterday and for Milwaukee to have him on the bench and still outscore Boston 21-3 speaks volumes. You got 4 different guys from Milwaukee in the Greek Freak and, Chris Middleton and George Hill and Meredith shooting better from three-point range than Kyrie Irving is shooting from the field. Kyrie Irving shooting about 38% from the field, 37% from the field, shooting about 27% from three-point range, 24% from three-point range, actually. He has been a shell of himself. He's been a colossal disappointment in this series. And when you juxtapose that to what you're seeing from Milwaukee, a team that's starving, they defend, they're big, they play big, they get after it, they push the ball up the court, they hit perimeter shots. They're exceptionally well coached by Budenholzer. I don't think it's beyond the pale to take into account what Charles Barkley said. I wouldn't pick the Milwaukee Bucks to win the championship at this particular moment in time, but I got to be honest with you. I'm thinking about it because they look that formidable against anybody right now. I watched them during the regular season against Houston. I watched them during the regular season against Golden State. I've seen them in the postseason against Boston. I've seen them in the regular season against Philadelphia and Toronto. This Milwaukee Bucks team can beat anybody, and I think we all need to be on a lookout for the Greek Freak capturing the championship. It's not beyond the pale. I wouldn't bet my money on it against KD just yet, but it is not beyond the realm of comprehension that it can happen.
We talk about roster construction in the NBA because it's max contract this, and it's easy for the fan to go ahead and spend the organization's money. Right? So, hey, man, just throw a max deal. Hey, you got LeBron, a couple pieces around him, that's a playoff team. We learned this year that's no guarantee. So what Milwaukee is doing, yeah, you've got Giannis, throw some shooters around him and it'll work. Well, they have to be the right shooters. And you just outlined it, Stephen A., because, Giannis goes out with foul trouble, gets his 4th foul with about 8 minutes and change to go in the 3rd quarter. So Budenholzer has to pull him out. And that's where if you're the Celtics, you say, we have to attack. We have to take advantage of this. And instead, they get outscored by the Bucks bench. They got outscored on the night by the bench 32-7. And Stephen A., that bench includes Gordon Hayward. I hate to box you in and frame the question this way, but how bad does that that contract look, considering the lack of production from him in this postseason?
We can never question the deal because if it weren't for that nasty, ugly injury that he had on opening night of the 2017-2018 season in Cleveland, we probably wouldn't be saying that. You can't predict that somebody's going to have an injury that ugly, that nasty, and hold it against Danny Ainge. You can't do that. That's not right. But I will tell you this. You can hold it against Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge. Why in the hell did you insert that man into the starting lineup at the beginning of this season when you knew good and well he was not ready? You insulted Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You got their attitudes up in a tizzy. You compromised what this team had built without Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving in the lineup last year, but still advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7 of it, just 48 minutes away from the NBA Finals. Why would you reinsert a guy into the starting lineup that everybody and their mother knew wasn't ready? That created a whole bunch of problems for the Boston Celtics. Because if you're Jaylen Brown or you're Jason Tatum, first of all, you knew you were better than him at that particular moment. But he's a nice guy, and you don't want to sit up there and deride him in any way because you know the only thing that derailed him was an injury, okay? But then you have to sit back and think about your stature on this team. You knew that his play would compromise you. It made you slower. It made you less athletic. In Terry Rozier's case, it compromised him and what he was going to be looking forward towards come free agency time. All of these things. And why did you do it? Because he played for Brad Stevens at Butler? Because you gave him $131 million if you were Danny Ainge? These are the kind of things that lead to that level of divisiveness. Because if you're the Boston Celtics, I'm here to tell you, I've been in that locker room several times this year. These brothers do not look happy. It's not a team. It's a collection of individual parts wearing the same uniform. That's the Boston Celtics. And I personally believe it had everything to do with them electing to play Gordon Hayward instead of recognizing the fact that he wasn't ready. He should have been coming off the bench. He should have been slowly and gradually a rematch rated into the process again, and there's no way on earth he should have been a starter. The second you did that and you snubbed your nose, figuratively speaking, at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you lost them, and you never got them back.
That's just it. Listen, Jason Tatum has not been really a shadow of what he was in the postseason a year ago. And there was going to be a balancing act. There was going to be a reacclimation process here with not only Gordon Hayward, but with Kyrie Irving, because quite frankly, him not being a part of the postseason run a year ago, where guys like Stephen A. mentioned, right, Terry Rozier and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, where they really took a big step forward, there's not enough ball to go around, and you'd be a fool to think so. So there was going to be adjustment and acceptance of roles, and it seems like, and this is the first time I've heard that blame sort of laid not at Hayward's feet, but at the reintroduction of Hayward into the starting lineup. Stephen, I want to play a soundbite here from Jalen Rose, our colleague here. This was on Get Up earlier this morning, where he's talking about maybe some culpability from Kyrie Irving in this meltdown of the Celtics. Do we have it?
I don't hear the sound.
Yeah, I don't need. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can.
Here's the distinction that the Celtics had to make. And I said this the day that they signed Kyrie. They used to be a pace and space team where the ball and the movement dictated who got the shot. Kyrie Irving is a ball-dominated, isolation type of player. They used to be a team where Al Horford, their center, led them in assists. Right. Okay, that was their style. Now they've chosen to give the ball to Kyrie to take them home. He's shown that he can't be the best player on a contending team. And I agree with you. He's done in Boston. And you ready for this? You ready for this? The teammates will help him pack.
Oh, yeah.
They can't wait for him
to go. Terry Rozier can't wait for him to get out.
Pack.
All right, Stephen A., you hear that, and what's your reaction?
Jalen's right. The fact of the matter is that Kyrie is gone, number one. Number two, the teammates are ready for him to go, but they didn't always feel this way. I think what's important to point out is that it's not about disliking Kyrie. It's certainly not about questioning his abilities. But as the season progressed and the frustrations grew, Kyrie is not the kind of guy that's going to always handle the frustrations in a very ideal fashion. So because of that, and the fact that he believes he's been there, he's done it, and he has a level of experience that they don't have, whereas they're looking at him and saying, excuse me, your experiences as the second fiddle dude to LeBron James doesn't usurp what we did last year without you, even though it didn't materialize into a championship, is where the lines are drawn. So all of those things are accurate. The problem is, in my estimation, it doesn't supersede my point about Gordon Hayward. Because if Gordon Hayward is never in the starting lineup, and the guys that started last year remain in the starting lineup with the exception of Terry Rozier, who obviously knew he'd have to take a backseat to Kyrie Irving, then what you would have is a situation where you're winning basketball games, you're not losing, and the sacrifices that are being asked of everyone to be made are easily received because you're not asking somebody to do something you didn't ask somebody else to do. See, when Gordon Hayward wasn't asked to make that sacrifice, when you went out of your way to capitulate to his wishes and you're Brad Stevens and you gave the impression that you were looking out for your boy instead of coaching this basketball team the way it was supposed to be coached, it's pretty difficult to then turn around and to ask other guys to make sacrifices. That's what Brad Stevens did. I like Brad Stevens. I think he's an exceptional young coach. I think all the praise that he's received in the past is well warranted. But in the end, what it comes down to is that you really indirectly and certainly not intentionally, but you ended up throwing the rest of your team under the bus because you wanted to take care of Gordon Hayward, because Gordon Hayward clearly was not ready. It doesn't matter that you ultimately put him on the bench in favor of Marcus Smart being in the starting lineup. How you started off the season resonated profoundly with guys because you were willing to compromise them for a player everyone knew was inferior because he was still recovering from that nasty injury. It's just something you don't do, particularly to a 22-year-old in Jaylen Brown who felt he was arriving, and a guy in Jason Tatum who was 20 years old who's still a baby in this league and thought it was about fairness and a meritocracy. You don't make that mistake. That's what Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens did, and it's coming back to bite them.
And it's ironic because one of the things they touted about Brad Stevens was his ability to not only get through to young players, but manage them, cultivate that culture there in the locker room, and have them embrace their roles. And this is the one thing that you're saying that Brad Stevens did not do a good enough job with as it pertains to Gordon Hayward. Talking to Stephen A. Smith on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Obviously, you were on First Take, one of your many responsibilities here earlier today. And I got to ask you what happened with Max Kellerman, because it looked like for a minute you were trying to help him out in this discussion of Kawhi Leonard and Kobe Bryant, but Jay Williams wasn't having anything to do with it. What happened there, Stephen A.?
Well, we were talking about clutch players, and he was making the case that Kawhi Leonard is a better clutch player than Kobe Bryant, which makes no sense to us. And Dan, we're not taking anything away from the greatness of Kawhi Leonard because we understand what it is. But the fact of the matter is, where's the resume? Where's the validation to prove such a thing? And so he was talking about what Kawhi Leonard did in the NBA Finals, and we were making an argument. It still does not compare. Kawhi Leonard was playing with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Ultimately, the franchise would be his, and clearly he was an NBA Finals MVP, primarily due to his defensive brilliance against LeBron James and anybody else he was faced. But when you can play into the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant's the Black Mamba for a reason. Kobe Bryant's a five-time champion. Kobe Bryant departed from Shaq, or had Shaq depart from him, and ultimately went back to 3 consecutive NBA Finals appearances and back-to-back titles. You're going to bring somebody up in the same conversation of Kobe Bryant. It can't be somebody that the second he became a number one option, the San Antonio Spurs go 67-15 during the 2015-2016 regular season. Their record at home is 40-1, and then they get obliterated by Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs. You can't sit up there and talk about a guy in this light who's the following season he only plays 9 games. And then this is right now with the Toronto Raptors as the number one option, as the go-to guy. This is really the first time he's been in this situation in order already ordained him over Kobe Bryant. That's just ridiculous and blasphemous and idiotic. And then on top of it all, what made it even worse was that he also turned around and said that Pau Gasol, when Kobe Bryant and them was going for the titles, was a better version of Tim Duncan, than when Tim Duncan and the Spurs were competing against Miami. Even though Tim Duncan was no longer himself, he didn't drop off that far. We respect the hell out of Pau Gasol, but never was he Tim Duncan. So those blasphemous comments by Max Kellerman was what made Jay Williams walk off the set. Yeah. And to be quite honest with you, if First Take wasn't my show and I didn't have the obligations that I have, I might have walked up too.
All right, Stephen A. Listen, we appreciate you. We appreciate you calling in.
But I do appreciate Max putting his foot out there and stepping out there and saying what he feels. I have no problem with it. That's what the show is all about. If that's what he truly believes, more power to him. But God bless him.
You put that foot out there, it's going to get slammed in a car door if you don't have a way to back up those claims going after Kobe Bryant, especially this time of year, especially so close to when he was so effective in the postseason at clutch time. Stephen A., safe travels. Enjoy the rest of the Western Conference semifinal series there, and we'll talk to you here soon.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Stephen A. Smith joining his own show, the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. That was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. We're going to have Chris Forsberg, who covers the Boston Celtics. He's going to join us at 2:30 Eastern Time. So that's the bottom of the second hour. We do have plenty more to get into with the Celtics, with the Bucks. Much more to get to, quite frankly, with the Warriors and the Rockets as well. Oh, and we have other semifinal games to get to tonight. That and more still ahead. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Hey, right now, 1-800-Flowers will give you 24 multicolored roses plus a free vase for only $29.99. Now, that's an offer that Mom would approve of. To order 24 multicolored roses plus a free vase for only $29.99. And for details, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code Stephen A. That's 1-800-Flowers.com.